Any closing words before Hazur comes in?
Oh, I think Marcel is now they say richest man here as a chairman.
Please be seated, please. मैं क्या शुरू करें प्रोसीडिंग्स? बस काफ़ी हो गई। मैंने कहा शुरू करें प्रोसीडिंग्स किस तरह करनी है? प्रोसीडिंग्स यहाँ से पढ़ूंगा मैं? अच्छा यहाँ से ये काफ़ी ठीक है। हाँ तो ठीक है। Now we begin this session with the recitation of the Holy Quran to be recited by Mr. Adil bin Saad. Adil bin Saad or Adil bin Saad? Adil bin Saad, please.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الله نور السماوات والأرض مثل نوره كمشكاة فيها مصباح المصباح في زجاجة الزجاجة كأنها كوكب دري يوقد من شجرة مباركة زيتونة لا شرقية ولا غربية يكاد زيتها يضيء ولو لم تمسسه نار نور على نور يهدي الله لنوره من يشاء ويضرب الله الأمثال للناس والله بكل شيء عليم في بيوت أذن الله أن ترفع ويذكر فيها اسمه ويذكر فيها اسمه يسبح له فيها بالغدو والآصال يسبح له فيها بالغدو والآصال رجال لا تلهيهم تجارة ولا بيع عن ذكر الله وإقام الصلاة وإيتاء الزكاة يخافون يوما تتقلب فيه القلوب والأبصار ليجزيهم الله أحسن ما عملوا ويزيدهم من فضله والله يرزق من يشاء بغير حساب والله يرزق من يشاء بغير حساب.
Jazakumullah. Translation of the verses recited before you will be done by Mr. Salim Fateh. Salim Fateh, please.
I'm going to present to you the translation of Surah An-Nur, chapter 24, verse 36 to 39. I seek refuge with Allah from Satan the accursed. In the name of Allah, the gracious, the merciful. Allah is the light of the heavens and the earth. The similitude of His light is as a lustrous niche, wherein is a lamp. The lamp is in a glass. The glass is as it were a glittering star. It is lit from a blessed tree, an olive, neither of the east nor of the west, whose oil would well nigh glow forth, even though fire touch it not. Light upon light. Allah guides to His light whomsoever He will. And Allah sets forth parables to men, and Allah knows all things full well. This light is now lit in the houses, with regard to which Allah has ordained that they shall be exalted, and that His name be remembered in them. Therein is He glorified in the mornings and in the evenings, by men whom neither merchandise nor traffic diverts from the remembrance of Allah and the observance of prayer and the giving of the zakat. They fear a day in which the hearts and eyes will be agitated, so that Allah may give them the best reward of their deeds and give them increase out of His bounty. And Allah does provide for whomsoever He pleases without measure. Thank you.
Thank you. Now a qasida or a portion of a qasida would be recited by Mr. Nabil Al-Husni. Nabil Al-Husni, please.
السلام على أمير المؤمنين. يا قلبي اذكر أحمد عين الهدى مغني العدا برا كريما محسنا بحر العطايا والجادا بدر منير زاهر في كل وصف حمدا إحسانه يصفي القلوب وحسنه يروي الصدى إحسانه يصفي القلوب وحسنه يروي الصدى والله يبدي نوره يوما وإن طال المدى الظالمون بظلمهم قد كذبوه تمردا والحق لا يسع الورى إنكاره لما بدا اطلب نظير كمالي اطلب نظير كمالي اطلب نظير كمالي فستندمن تلددا ما أن رأينا مثله للنائمين مسهدا نور من الله يهدي أحيا العلوم تجددا والله يظهر نوره يوما وإن طال المصطفى والمجتبى المصطفى والمجتبى والمقتدى والمجتبى جمعت مرابع الهدى في وابنه حين الندى نسي الزمان رهامه من جود هذا المهتدى والله يظهر نوره يوما وإن طال اليوم يسعى النكس أن يخفي هداه ويخمده والله يبدي نوره يوما وإن طال المدى يا قطر سارية وغاد قد صمت من الردى ربيت أشجار الأسرة بالفيوض وقرددا إنا وجدناك الملاذ فبعد كهف قد بدا والله يظهر نوره يوما وإن طال لا نتقي قوس الخطوب ولا نبالي مرشدا لا نتقي قوس الخطوب ولا نبالي مرشدا لا نتقي نوب الزمان ولا نخاف تهددا ونمد في أوقات آفات إلى المولى يدا كم من منازعة جرت بيني وأقوام العدا حتى انتنيت مبطرا وموقرا ومؤيدا والله يظهر نوره يوما وإن طال المدى يا أيها الناس اتقوا يوما يشيب التوهدا يا أيها الناس اتقوا يوما يشيب التوهدا آلامه ما تنقضي وأسيره ما يبتدى والله إني ما ضللت وما عدلت عن الهدى والله إني ما ضللت وما عدلت عن الهدى لكنني مذ لم أزل ممن إذا هدي اهتدى لكنني مذ لم أزل ممن هدي ثم اهتدى لله حمد ثم حمد قد عرفنا المهتدى والله يظهر نوره يوما وإن طال الهدى كادت تعفيه ضلالات فأدركني الهدى يا صاحي إن الله قد أعطى لنا هذا جدى هي ليلة القدر التي تعطي النعيم المهتدى والله نوره والله يظهر نوره يوما وإن طال المدى أتشكر في حومات نفسك تاركا سنن الهدى هل انتهجت محجة الأحياء يا صيد الغدا يا من غدا للمؤمنين أشد بغضا كالعدا اخترت لذة هذه ونسيت ما يعطى غدا والله يظهر نوره يوما وإن طال المدى يا خاطب الدنيا الدنية قد هلكت تجلدا عليك أهل ولاية وقطعت آثار العدا اليوم تكفرني وتحسبني شقيا ملحدا اليوم تكفرني وتحسبني شقيا ملحدا وترى بوقت بعده في ذي أحمد أحمدا وترى بوقت بعده في ذي أحمد أحمدا والله ينير نوره والله ينير نوره يوما وإن طال المدى هدى ونظمت في سلك الرفاق وجدتني مسترشدا والله يظهر نوره يوما وإن طال المدى.
جزاكم الله.
Translation.
कौन सी इसकी सबकी जरूरत नहीं बहुत लंबा हो जाएगा. Now Ms. Sayyid Mubarak Ahmed will recite a poem again in the praise of Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah, the founder of Islam and the best of all the prophets.
अपने प्यारे इमाम हजरत खलीफतुल मसीह राबे अय्यदाहुल्लाह ताला बिन नसीर अजीज के मंजूम कलाम में से चंद अशआर. है आसमान के तारे गवाह सूरज चांद.
Just a minute, it's a different poem. I'm sorry. It's a different poem. Sun and moon stood witness to his truth as prophesied. So I thought he would be reading a different poem and now I understand. Please continue.
है आसमान के तारे गवाह सूरज चांद पड़े हैं मांद जरा कुछ विचार कर देखो. पड़े हैं मांद जरा कुछ विचार कर देखो. जरूर महदिये दौरां का हो चुका है ज़हूर. जरूर महदिये दौरां का हो चुका है ज़हूर. जरा सा नूर फिरासत निखार लेकिन खजाने तुम पे लुटाए गला जरम लेकिन बस एक नजर अकीदत गुजार कर देखो, बस एक नजर अकीदत गुजार कर देखो। अगर है जिद के ना मानोगे पर न मानोगे, अगर है जिद के ना मानोगे पर न मानोगे, तो हो सके जो करो बार बार कर देखो, तो हो सके जो करो बार बार कर देखो। बदल सको तो बदल दो निज़ाम शम्सो कमर, बदल सको तो बदल दो निज़ाम शम्सो कमर, खिलाफ गर्दिश लैलो नहार कर देखो, खिलाफ गर्दिश लैलो नहार कर देखो। पलट सको तो पलट दो फिराम शाम सहर, पलट सको तो पलट दो खिराम शाम सहर, हिसाब चरख को बेएतबार कर देखो, हिसाब चरख को बेएतबार कर देखो। जो हो सके तो सितारों के रास्ते काटो, जो हो सके तो सितारों के रास्ते काटो, कोई तो चारा करो कुछ तो कार कर देखो, कोई तो चारा करो कुछ तो कार कर देखो। खुदा की बात टलेगी नहीं, तुम हो क्या चीज। खुदा की बात टलेगी नहीं, तुम हो क्या चीज। अटल चट्टान है सर मार मार कर देखो, अटल चट्टान है सर मार मार कर देखो। उतर रही है फलक से गवाहियां, रोको। उतर रही है फलक से गवाहियां, रोको। वो गुलगपाड़ा करो, हाल जार कर देखो। वो गुलगपाड़ा करो, हाल जार कर देखो। गवाह दो हैं दो हाथों से छातियां पीटो। गवाह दो हैं दो हाथों से छातियां पीटो। कुसूफ शम्सो कमर हार हार कर देखो। कुसूफ शम्सो कमर हार हार कर देखो। जलन बहुत है तो होती फिरे न निकलेगी। जलन बहुत है तो होती फिरे न निकलेगी। बड़ास सीने की बक बक हजार कर देखो। बड़ास सीने की बक बक हजार कर देखो। कफस के शेरों से करते हो रोज दो दो हाथ। कफस के शेरों से करते हो रोज कफस के शेरों से करते हो रोज दो बन के बब्बर से विचार कर देखो दो आंखें बन के बब्बर से विचार कर देखो मेरी सुनो तो पहाड़ों से सर न टकराओ मेरी सुनो तो पहाड़ों से सर न टकराओ जो मेरी मानो तो इज्ज़त इख्तियार कर देखो जो मेरी मानो तो इज्ज़त इख्तियार कर देखो जरा सा नूर फिरासत निखार कर देखो बस एक नजर अकीदत गुजार कर देखो
Jazakumullah. Dr. Salim Rahman will read the translation done by, I think, our translation F team, or perhaps by Farina Ejaz, but this translation has come from London.
The heavenly signs are witness. The moon and the sun have ceased to emit light. I wonder why. The promised Messiah must have appeared. Speak the signs. Remove the mist from your eyes and see again. No doubt, he will shower treasures upon you as prophesied. All you need to do is to offer your dedication at his blessed feet. If you insist that you will not believe, nay, believe you will not, do then whatever you can to frustrate his mission. Do it again and yet again. If you can change the order of the orbits of the sun and the moon, go. Try and change them. Run counter to the rotation of nights and days as designed by God. If you have the power to reverse the alterations of mornings and nights, spare it not. Deprive the law of astronomy of all credibility if you can. Obstruct the course of stars if you may. Try whatever you can and try again. Bring your mounted cavalry. Call forth your marching infantry. Advance, attack, muster your forces. Take all measures to win the battle against the will of God. Inevitable is the word divine. What are you, O worthless, wretched menials? A rock indestructible is the decree of God. Beat your heads against it. Divine testimonies are descending from the heavens in favor of the Messiah's truth. Halt their descent if you can. Block their passage if you will. Babble and shout and do make noise until you drop with exhaustion. 2 witnesses have appeared in the heavens. Beat your chest in frustration with the 2 fists you've got. Watch the eclipse of the moon and the sun. Watch yet again and swoon. If your hearts burn beyond toleration, let them burn. Your agony of jealousy shall not be slackened. Give vent to your pent-up hatred with the foulest language you can spit. It was you, remember, who badgered the Ahmadi loins and caged, day in and day out. What Herculean deeds indeed! What feats of prowess! I dare you to come and stare into the blazing eyes of the free lion, king of wilderness. If you listen to me, do not pound your heads against the rocks. If you take my advice, humble yourselves and submit to the will of God.
Jazakumullah. Naseem Mali Sahib, what is next? I think you better take over from here and just. I'm sorry for this delay. I didn't expect it to be that long, myself. But they organize these programs and you can fight it out with them afterwards.
Following our tradition at the time of Jalsa Salana, Majlis Khudamul Ahmadiyya Canada presents awards to 3 different majalis or their chapters. And for this I request Dr. Sayyid Aslam Dawood Sahib, who is the president of Majlis Khudamul Ahmadiyya Canada, the Ahmadiyya Youth Organization, to come and make the announcement. Dr. Sayyid Aslam Dawood.
You try to be brief in your response.
Assalamu alaikum wa barakatuh. Al-Minami is the highest award in Majlis can achieve because of exceptional performance. There are strict criteria and requirements which a Majlis has to meet. By the grace of Allah, many Majalis worked hard during this year and 4 Majalis qualified for the competition. It is my pleasure to announce that Majlis Khudamul Ahmadiyya Malton successfully met all the criteria and is being awarded the Al-Minami for the year 1996-97. I humbly request respected Huzur to kindly award the Alam to Brother Rizal Nasir Ahmad, Qaid Majlis Khudamul Ahmadiyya Malton.
Assalamu alaikum. No, this is the Khudamul Ahmadiyya flag. Which I
The second position is won by Majlis Khudamul Ahmadiyya Calgary. I request Huzur to award the certificate of performance to Brother Ijaz Ahmad, Qaid Majlis Khudamul Ahmadiyya Calgary.
Who is Brother Ijaz? Barakallahu.
And finally, the Majlis Khudamul Ahmadiyya North York came out as the 3rd Majlis. Once again, I request Huzur to award the certificate to Brother Kaisar Ghumman, Qaid Majlis Khudamul Ahmadiyya North York.
Barakallahu. Now we have a big shake hand and be quick about it, please. Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum. MashaAllah. Now one Nara of Majlis Khudamul Ahmadiyya Canada.
Majlis Khudamul Ahmadiyya Canada.
Jazakallah.
Sayyidi, with your permission, I would like to read out the message from the Premier of Ontario. He writes, on behalf of the Government of Ontario, I am pleased to welcome everyone taking part in the annual convention of the Ahmadiyya Movement in Islam, Canada. We are extremely proud in this province of our diverse cultural heritage and of the way we show our pride of ancestry through the preservation of our distinct cultures. I believe the work of the Ahmadiyya Movement in Islam, Canada is valuable because it will help to promote diversity and expand our society's knowledge of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community and experience in Canada. This annual convention is an important event and speaks of the commitment and dedication of your community's members. This year's convention is especially honored to have the presence of His Holiness Hazrat Mirza Tahir Ahmed, who was able to make the journey from his home in London, England. I welcome His Holiness to our province and thank him for his gracious participation. Please accept my best wishes for an inspirational and memorable convention, signed by the Honorable Michael Harris, Premier of Ontario.
Thank you. Jazakumullah. This is the message.
Now I would like to invite another friend of the community who is a member of the Federal Cabinet, and he, as he was just a few minutes ago in a different session, was introduced by Don Cousins, the Mayor of Markham, the richest man in Canada, because he is the President of the Treasury Board of Canada. And I have none. I request Honorable Marcel Massey, who is representing the Prime Minister of Canada today. Honorable Marcel Massey.
Thank you.
Your Holiness, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, in the name of the Government of Canada and in my own name, I would like today to bring you greetings and a very warm welcome, and especially to Your Holiness, from the Government of Canada and from all Canadians. It is in days like these that we can see how important it is to have movements like the Ahmadiyya movement in Canada and in the world.
Thank you.
In Canada, what the country can offer, and you will forgive me, Your Holiness, for mentioning it, but I'm proud of my country, and what my country can offer is freedom, compassion, solidarity, and the ability for everybody from all races to be here. But I would like to underline today, in the presence of Your Holiness, that the Ahmadiyya movement brings something to all the countries where it is, and especially to Canada. Because what you give is a sense of community that is rare. What we get from the teachings of His Holiness is a view of humanity where spiritual values must dominate. And in a society where there is a lot of materialism and perhaps too much individualism, what the Ahmadiyya movement gives us and what Your Holiness brings to us is a sense of values, a sense of life, a sense of community
that Canada needs and that makes Canada richer. And I have today a message from the Prime Minister which I will now read. It is with great pleasure that I extend my warmest greetings to everyone participating in the annual convention of the Ahmadiyya movement in Islam Canada being held in Toronto. This gathering will provide you with the ideal forum in which to exchange views and discuss issues of mutual concern with fellow delegates. You will also have the opportunity to review past achievements and set new objectives for the future. I'm sure that you will find your participation in this convention both enjoyable and rewarding. Please accept my best wishes for a productive session of activities, and it is signed the Prime Minister of Canada, Jean Chrétien. Thank you. And now, with your permission, Your Holiness, I will give you this memento and at the same time renew my warmest welcome to all those who are attending here, and especially to you, Your Holiness.
Thank you. This is the message from the Prime Minister of Canada. No, just a little private diversion. This is a watch. It was repaired under my request for a commission. And this is personal. This is not the watch. Okay. And you find it, I think, lovely. The country has done a good show. It has my name on it and MTA. I'm very grateful. Thank you very much. Thank you. Now, what is the schedule? Huh? Okay. Listen to lots of video. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. The speeches which begin with formalities are not the speeches which I make. So I welcome you, all of you, who are guests on. In whatever capacity you have come here, I welcome you with the depth of my heart
and I am going to share with you some of the values which I share. I have. In the world of science, there have been many complicated problems which when were resolved by very simple solutions, which amazed the world of scientists. Somehow those simple solutions ignored their attention, but when discovered, they were found to be very simple, which human common sense could have understood long before. But then human common sense is guided by God. It understands things at the right moment when God so decides. This is the meaning, or one of the meanings of the verse, وَلَا يُحِيطُونَ بِشَيْءٍ مِنْ عِلْمِهِ إِلَّا بِمَا شَاءَ. They cannot encircle any of his knowledge, but only to the degree that he so permits. One of the solutions to the moral problems or the problems of the world which I am going to offer is also simple, very simple indeed. I am going to talk to you not about morality, because morality has also been made complicated by humans. What morality? From which angle? But I am talking to you of something which is universal and so plain and simple that every human can understand it. I am just talking of goodness. It's amazingly simple, but the fact is that God has granted humans the concept of goodness which is universal, which is not influenced by their previously held doctrines and views and religions and societies. They're just common to man as such. They're not debatable. For instance, when you speak of kindness to others, there's no religion in the world would stand up to say, no, our God has not taught us. When you speak of truth, it can be taken as a moral value, but also it can be taken as a universal human value. And as such, even the greatest liars would not say a word against truth itself, because they expect people to be true to them. And this is the criterion of goodness. What you expect of others, you may not practice. But because you, in relation to you, you expect others to behave in a certain manner, that manner in which you expect them to behave is goodness. You would never find a man who would like to be treated in a manner that he does not like. But that is not all the definition of goodness. Because things get complicated again when a corrupt person wants to be treated with corruption by others of his kith and kin, or others of his kind. But there too, I must draw your attention to the fact that although he would like anyone in the government, for instance, to be as corrupt as he is by accepting his corruption or the gift for achieving his ulterior motives, still he would not like others to bribe the same person against him. So the bribery is a negative value, which sometimes is directly understood by those against whom it is used, and sometimes indirectly understood, as I have just given the example. But human values of goodness remain universally the same all over the world. What we need today, not only in Canada but all over the world, we must wage a holy war in favor of goodness, in favor of human good values. Now this holy war can be referred to God in His unity, and it can be referred to human concept of goodness, which
are deeply founded in him. The goodness I'm talking about draws from the fountainhead of goodness which God has given every human. Even the atheists know that. They simply cannot run away from the acceptance of the word goodness. Because in their daily life, if they do not refer to God, they refer to humanity as such. And somehow they know that the entire universe has one simple, single idea of goodness, even when it is not conscious of it. Now, with reference to that, what is that central idea of goodness? That is the universal law of following the word of God. The entire nature is good only because it is obedient to the word of God. In the entire nature there is no chaos only because it is commanded by the unity of God. So goodness in the ultimate analysis would lead you to God, and there is no way that you can stop short of that. Analyze it further and in detail, apply it to your human values and human experiences, and in the final analysis you will have to be led to God, because goodness springs from Him. And those who do not believe in God, their goodness also springs from Him, but it is embedded in their nature, and a nature which could not have been created by chance, a nature which is so beautifully designed, which is made universal. You can't have the different concepts of these fundamentals of goodness in different countries. So I'm referring to that goodness which has two sources for humankind. One, the source of its direct origin from God, and the second, the source of its indirect origin from God. We are here in the moment sharing our time with a society in which unfortunately atheism has found its roots. Atheism has always been a problem for humans, but there are times when it finds roots and prospers in certain societies. Today, unfortunately, in the modern societies, atheism has found its roots. It has begun to flourish. And all the ugliness in the world which we witness are the bitter fruits of atheism. Now, if I develop this subject further, it would become complicated, because I would be giving you a philosophy of life. But let me be simple and return back to the concept of goodness. Even the atheists share that concept. They don't know why and how. Some great European philosophers pondered over these issues and said that the only reason why we must believe in something superhuman is that human nature requires goodness and knows what goodness is. And that fundamentality of the question and universality of the issue of goodness compels us to believe that there has to be some superhuman force which has endowed man with this basic fundamental source of goodness. So I invite the attention of Jamaat Ahmadiyya United in Canada to start preaching goodness as such. They can start preaching goodness and try even the influence of what your address is on atheists who know no God. If you go to the house of an atheist and tell him that I have come to preach to you, beseech you to be good to your neighbor, can he ever raise the objection, no, I won't be good to my neighbor because I don't believe in God? Can you ever approach an atheist and tell him to be honest and true? He would not rebut your request by saying, why should I be honest to others? because I do not believe in God. He may, if he so like, but then you can answer him, of course. You can answer him by telling him that, would you like to be served by the same coins? Would you like the society to be dishonest to you? And there the cat will be out of the bag. The cat of atheism has to jump out of the bag and say, no, no. No evil must be done to me. This is the meaning of universal understanding of goodness. So what you should begin with is improving the society without inviting them to your religion. Even without inviting some of them to God. Because willy-nilly they will be ultimately led to God when they become good. Now understand it with reference to the prophetic experience, the experience of all the prophets of the world, from times immemorial. Every prophet began his holy war against evil, not in favor of the dogmas or beliefs he held. He started going to the society, inviting them to goodness. And the Holy Quran is full of such references. Those who did not believe in the message of a prophet to be a divine message, even they were addressed. And they were told, look here, be honest in your financial dealings. Be true to the humans. And do not treat them with any mischief. Do not rob them on the highways and so on and so forth. None of them could be rebutted by the society that you're wrong. Those who did rebut them are the same people who agreed with them prior to their claim to prophethood. Prior to their claim to prophethood, they were treated as human sages, moralists, and this and that, to listen to whom the society was not obliged. So they let it go at that. When a prophet began his mission, long before the beginning of that divine mission, he had started that mission without reference to God. And this is the message of the Quran applicable to all the prophetic ages and all the prophets of the world. Unless you begin this journey in the direction of improving the quality of human life, you yourself do not belong to God. And it is here that the unity of God comes into play. If you believe in the unity of God truly and genuinely, you must take care of His creation as He would take care of them. If not, then you will not be unified with God. Talk of unity and be not unified with the object of unity is absurdity extreme. It is not valid. And if you try your hand at improving the quality of goodness around you without improving your own quality with reference to God, then you are bound to fail in your mission. This is the second important aspect of goodness to which I want to draw your attention. You have to be good yourself. And you can only be good. You believe in God, so you can only be good with reference to His attributes. And His attributes, as I have told you, are universal. They're all beneficiary. They're all beneficent. They're all kind. They're all based on the absolute concept of justice. So you must be armed with those attributes of God before you ever think of preaching for the sake of goodness as such. As I have told you, you may not have to be a religious person to wage this war, but your war will only succeed if you truly believe in the unity of God. Because You must be armed with something. It is always your own personal goodness with which you must be armed to change the society. That is why all the prophets of God were absolutely certain of their victory. Sometimes there were few in number who followed them. They were weak, they were helpless, they were transgressed against. Yet the prophets knew that they are bound to emerge victorious. Because they serve the cause of goodness. And believe the reason why they ultimately become victorious is that within every man, there is a seed of goodness which cannot dry out completely. It always remains there waiting for an appropriate season. And when that season comes, then that seed begins to sprout again. If God had not embedded that seed in every human, no effort to make human good could ever have succeeded. It is that seed which you touch upon. You create a healthy climate for that seed to sprout and prosper in that climate. That climate is always provided by those who are good. They carry their climate with them. And this is the meaning of prophethood, spreading its influences all around. Prophets are so profoundly good that to come close to them gravitates you towards them. And it's impossible for you to withhold yourself. When you get closer to them, they sort of become, as they call, black holes, but the prophets become the glorious white holes, which do gravitate towards them, the humankind, only with the power and concentrated power of their goodness. Remove goodness from their lives and their message would mean nothing. Such people have always arisen in the world talking of high-flown philosophies, but they could not win a single convert to their path. None would love them for what they called. This example, this aspect of goodness, which is deep and truly founded, deeply founded, was once brought to light by Averroes or Abu Ali Sina. Some people say he did not truly believe in God, but I don't agree with them. But the point I am going to make with reference to him is this, that once one of his great and very devout admirers likened him to Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and said, "You are a prophet of your time. You are like him, you are great." He looked at him with agony in his eyes. He said, "What did you say? Am I like Muhammad Rasulullah? If on a chilly morning I ask you to jump into a chilly water stream, you'd look back at me as if I was mad, I was talking sheer madness, and you will not do it. But when Muhammad Rasulullah asked his companions to run their horses in the seas and oceans and against the barricade of race and naked swords, they ran their horses against the blades of those swords and were split in two, but they never parted company with their holy master. Where was the power for this? Who granted them that strength? It was the living, real goodness of Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and nothing else. People know when they know a person who is true. And even if prior to that knowledge, a personal knowledge of the truth, they may have thought of different things about him, they may have tried to
drive away from him, but when they come close, when they see the truth in action, they cannot help it. That is why goodness has no religion. That is why I said goodness has no color, no creed, no name. Because it is more like gravity, which does not have an opposite pole. All other forces of nature have an opposite pole. They are divided into two magnetic poles which, if they like each other, they repel each other. If they are unlike each other, they attract each other. But what is gravity? It's a completely different and dazzling phenomenon. If two heavenly bodies are alike, and this is gravity, they would be pulled towards each other. They would not be repelled by each other. This is the unity, ultimate unity of forces of nature. So goodness has that gravitational quality. You can't run away from it. Ultimately, it is bound to emerge victorious. That is why I liken Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah and all the prophets of God, in fact, to the so-called black holes, which I said are white holes in case of religion. All prophets have won their victory through goodness. So you have to become good yourself. Why is goodness likened to unity? Because it does not know any opposite pole which could work against it. That is how God commands from the seat of his throne. He commands because of unity. All that emanates from him has unity. The force of gravitation is the first act of his command, which has given birth to many other forces. But ultimately all forces converge towards the singleness of gravitation. And gravitation leads to God and to none other. So I'm talking of moral values in the sense of goodness, because only in this sense the world can understand them. But for that you must be unified with God. The force which ultimately, irresistibly drew the Arab people towards Muhammad Rasulullah Sallam was the force, was the power of God. Nothing else. This aspect of the victory of the message of Muhammad Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam has been repeatedly brought home to us by Hazrat Masih Maud Alayhi Salatu Wasallam. He continuously reminds us that the victory of Muhammad Rasulullah owed to his goodness and owed to his oneness with God. When he was unified with God, then he became powerful, and he remained unified with God right from the beginning of his life. But you can try this yourself in this society or all over the world where this message is being conveyed through MTI. Be good, and for that you are your best judge. You yourself are your best judge. And if you don't know how to judge your goodness, because many a time you may be misled by self-conceit. You may think you are good to others, but whenever somebody acts towards you the way you act to others, and you feel hurt, you realize immediately that you are not good. And that happens daily in life. There are husbands who treat their wives with that one-sidedness. They do not realize that they are not good. Because if their wives start using the same attitude towards them, they would violently react. Why this violent reaction against goodness?
So this is a test case for goodness. When it is used in your direction, you never react against it. Never. When anybody is good to you, here there are no question of two poles repelling each other. You always draw the person towards you and you become friendly to him because he is good to you. So God has to be friendly to all his creation. God has to be benign, and that is what he is. So learn benign values from God, and that you can achieve by becoming one with God. But as I said, everyone is, in a manner of speaking, at one with God. None of his creations is completely deprived of Allah's attributes. So work from those attributes within you. Recognize them and begin to make them flourish and proliferate. And that can only be done by their being applied to your daily problems in the society. Now I know every man has some basic good traits. Even the worst among the people who are considered to be just useless, they have some sense of loyalties. They sometimes have a sense of loyalty to their families, which even the good people do not have. So in one way or another, every human is good because every human is created by goodness of God. You must work on that central point of your goodness and begin to flourish, begin to grow around that point. And that can be done only through exercise. If you are equipped by Allah in a certain art and you excel in that art, if you try your hand at sharing the qualities of that art with your neighbors, with the surrounding society, with the destitute, with the poor who need your help, you start extending your help to them. Apparently it's a small thing. Many people are great artisans because God has granted them that art, and they don't consider it to be good. But everything which is creative is good because it is from God. So I'm talking of these values which are universal and which are apparently secular as well. Because, as I have earlier said, man is bestowed with these values because whichever way he traveled, he had to reach God. Whether you travel inwards or whether you travel outwards, it is God to whom you will be led if you are true to your nature. So start your journey of goodness, your journey of goodness towards goodness, by employing whatever qualities God has granted you in His cause and in His path. Don't differentiate between Ahmadis and non-Ahmadis. Don't differentiate between Muslims and non-Muslims. Tell the society that you can help them in this or that, and do help them. And do not wait there for praises, do not wait there for rewards. Just turn your face away, because this is the meaning of goodness which is bestowed to us through the Holy Quran. The Holy Quran tells us when God's people do service to mankind of any sort, when they are thanked, they do not like it. They turn back to them and say, do not thank us, please. We did it for the sake of God. Being honest with them, they tell them that they are not to be thanked because they did it for the sake of God. To whom they turn the face of the person to whom they did favor? To God. So this way again, goodness would lead to God. The person, even if he is atheist, he would wonder what sort of man he is.
he did me a favor. I wanted to pay back in the same coins or somewhat in the same coins. I wanted to thank him. He said, no, I do not need it. I did it for the sake of God. This person can never forget this experience. It will begin to bother him as to what sort of man he was and who created this man, what values made him. And then he will have that point of reception in him created through which God could enter in the form of goodness. He may become good to others just because somebody had been good to him. And when he begins his journey of goodness, as I have told you, and I can demonstrate to you for hours together with reference to each human experience, that such goodness would always lead to God. There is no stopping on the way. So try your hands at that and reach the Canadian society with the goodness with which God has equipped you. But for that you have to search within you critically with reference to the points I have just given you. Understand goodness in the sense that when it is done to you, you enjoy it, you love it. Understand goodness in the sense that when you do it to others, you do not want any rewards. Goodness has to be selfless. If you are equipped with these two basic values of goodness or basic definition of goodness, then you can go into the world preaching goodness to others and bestowing goodness to them. But goodness does not flow only from the direction of the rich to the direction of the poor. This again is a fantastic thing about goodness, because the values of prophets, they do not only flow in the direction of the poor of the society, they also flow in the direction of the richest and the strongest of the society. Their goodness means changing their attitude to life in a manner that ultimately they realize that they have emerged a better man. They begin to feel the pleasure of goodness in them. If you can do this to the society in Canada in so many different ways, then you do not have to spend a penny from your own pocket for spreading this seed of goodness. You tell the Canadians of what goodness they had before, say, the last 20 or 50 years. And it will open up the eyes of those who have no care for goodness at all. You can give a boost to your concept of goodness with reference to their national pride. So remember this, and it is this point which I want to emphasize to you, because otherwise, if you are not well equipped with the manner in which you should spread the seed of goodness, you will never be successful. And it is this lack of manner or lack of knowledge which many a time stands in the way of good people and their good actions. If they go on knocking at the doors like Jehovah's Witnesses do and telling them that they should turn to God and they should stop behaving in this manner or that manner, that would just be an admonition. People may get fed up of this. They may shout from the windows of their top rooms to the people standing below, knowing them to be Jehovah's Witnesses, for God's sake, stop it and go back. We know what morality is. But if we do not, you do not know that we are atheists, we do not believe in any such nonsense. We leave our bags and go away from our doors, or just do not bother us. Whatever language they may use. Some would be kind, some would be harsh, but they would react against this attempt of some people who try to rub in their dogmas into the people's hearts and minds in the name of goodness. So don't try that. Try your hand at other things. Meet a person, if you can invite him to a cup of tea, invite him to a cup of tea and start talking of the old values of Canada which once it took pride in. Tell them that they are gradually slipping out of our hands. They were good values. The streets of Canadian cities were calm and peaceful. There were no robbers, no muggers. Nobody broke your houses, or they broke into your houses and wiped out everything you had possessed before that. They never feared walking in the street even in the dead of the night. And there are two values. This is what happened, at least I know with reference to England, which I knew when I visited there in 1955. It was a different country, altogether different, which I visited and enjoyed. All the streets of London were calm and peaceful. Everything you lost was returned to you. Everybody was kind to you in showing you the path. And even the police, imagine, even the police was so decent that at times you fell in love with the police of London. They were there when you needed them. They were not seen when you did not want to see them. They were firm in discipline, but kind in enforcing discipline. These are the olden days. Whenever I refer to these values to some people who meet me, whether they are good or bad, they all are extremely excited at their own past. They say, yes, this is what we have lost. So where is Canada today? Has it not lost that Canada which was the Canada of yesterday? How can they improve the quality of their life by moving forward with the currents of time towards the precipice? And everybody realizes it. There are times in the history of nation when they must turn back. By going back, they will find the food for their survival. The Holy Quran refers to the same by taking up a sort of tale, but it is a reality. Those who understand the Quran know that it is a sort of parable in which some very profound realities are explained. I draw your attention to the fact that Moses is shown by the Quran to have gone into a journey where a young man also joined him and started and gave him company. Now I do not want to rebuild the whole anecdote, but the one thing to which I am pointing out is that they went forward beyond a certain point. And later on, after they had covered some distance, they realized that they had lost their food. And they could not proceed further with that food. The food was fish, which is interpreted in religious terms as the food for spirit, food for the life of divinely people. So it was portrayed that Christianity, along with Judaism, may go beyond the rock where they had left their food. They must return to that point and not go on and on beyond without anything to sustain their survival. This is what I am going to draw your attention to.
Moses said, let us turn back. Let's go back to that point. And it was that point in search of which we had taken this journey. A time when we'll be deprived of our spiritual food, and still our existence will be projected beyond it. So there are many nations whose existence is projected beyond a point where the source of their survival is no longer with them. And the source of the survival of human societies is always goodness. If they remain good, they will survive. If they do not remain good, they are bound to be demolished or shattered, which may not happen progressively. Progressively, their bad values are built, but they always explode in a moment of their final consummation. So that is why people do not realize that the bad values or evil they are pursuing are ultimately destructive. They go on doing it and saying, look here, we are enjoying life and nothing happens to us. While things begin to happen to them and they begin to build up in a manner that they do not realize. Although many a time they see them being built up. But each individual thinks that he will escape the consequences and only the society, the others would suffer from the consequences. So these are the times to return, to accept defeat, to know that it is goodness alone which can be responsible for your survival, and evil will always destroy you. So today I think is the time for the return of Canadians to that past of theirs, which they read in books, which they know through history. Bring that history to you or go back to history. This is the only solution I can offer. There is no third option to that. And for that Ahmadis can help. Ahmadis can only help if they themselves would become and become contagious in their goodness. They would create small islands around them. They will increase their society of those who have fallen for them despite their different views on religion and doctrines. This is happening in the world of Ahmadiyyat everywhere now, and what I am inviting you to is not idealism. I am inviting you only to an ideal realism which has presented to us by God. So I know many such cases. I personally know hundreds of such cases where Ahmadis being good were taken note of, where the society around them began to be gravitated towards them. And questions were asked as to what sort of people you are, who you are. You're so different. You're so kind to others. You are a person which the society requires. You must grow. And with this delivered or undelivered message, they begin to close their distance upon that person, that Ahmadi. And one day I hear that he himself has become an Ahmadi. Just with their argument of goodness. Because it works very powerfully. So do not be good because you want to spread your message, because of your powerful argumentation, your practical arguments. Do not do it for that, because the moment you ascribe a personal motive to your goodness will be lost, it will be evaporated into thin air. It's a strange thing, goodness is. It can become a dream, it can become a reality. It all depends on your attitude towards it. When you begin to use goodness to gain something, it evaporates into dreams. When you used goodness to serve others, it materializes. It takes a form. It becomes a reality. So it's a fantastic world I'm talking about, but a real fantastic world. So, you Ahmadis of Canada, this is my all-important message, to serve the cause of unity in realism. Now when I said that you must not use your goodness to favor your own ego, this is, perhaps you may not have noticed, is another expression of unity. You do goodness because you are unified with God. And only unity can bear such goodness as I am talking about. When you are unified with God, all you want to do is that your gains are offered at the altar of God. Whatever you have, because of your full identification with Him, is offered to God. Automatically, without making any noises. You simply become a channel between God and His creation. And what is your reward? Your reward is the reward of the gravitational forces which grow big. They begin to attract even the stars at hundreds of thousands of light years away from them. Because when you do it for the sake of God, the unity within you will begin to grow. It will begin to attract. And it will ultimately emerge victorious over the greatest power of the world, who would like and do everything in their power to resist your gravitational pull. But that goodness must be connected with God, must be hooked on to God, or it will not be goodness. So unity of God is expressed in that manner and in some other manners as well. When you talk of goodness, you become good, you are at one with God, and it is for God to grow when He grows in you. God directly is not visible. His attributes are not visible, but they are made visible by people who acquire them. This is why Hazrat Masih Maud alayhi salatu wasalam, paying the highest tribute to Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah, said that I do not call you God, but I know not how to differentiate between your character and the character of God. I know you are not God, but you have submitted so perfectly to Him that you look like God in the manifestation of your basic fundamental human character. So unity is forged with God while you remain human. And then the spread of what you are, the proliferation of what you stand for, becomes the responsibility of God. Because in Him He grows. So that is one way of looking at your holy war in favor of goodness. Do it. Start it today. Start at this moment by praying to God that He should reward you with this quality of unity and take care of this within you and protect you from evil eyes. So the prayer also can be the beginning of a struggle. And that struggle can begin here and now. Through prayer, you can further be unified with Allah, and from now on, when you make this momentous decision of your life, you will be working as a pawn in His hand, and He would certainly win every game of chess. He knows how to win. He knows how to move the pawns. But the pawns do not. They don't have even personal strength to jump from one square to another. So become the pawns in the hands of God. And that game would certainly be won by Allah and His forces. And the second aspect of unity which I refer to is the universal concept of goodness. When you tell people to delve deeper into themselves and look for the qualities which are responsible for the making of them and making of their personalities, which have been abandoned, to return to those qualities, then again you begin this journey towards God, because ultimately this will lead to God. That is why some religions are misunderstood to be only inspirational. Taoism, Buddhism, Confucianism, and some other religions, like some branches of Hindu philosophy, are considered to be only inspirational. I cannot draw a line between true inspiration and true revelation. Both are the same, and they always reach the same conclusions. So all such sages who were considered to be sages, who started traveling within themselves in search of the ultimately fountainhead of wisdom, they reached God. God was waiting for them. The proof is that they began to preach God then. They began to preach not only inspiration, but also revelation. This requires a separate address in itself, because I can elaborate this subject with reference to all these religions which I have named. In the beginning, the journeys of the wise people was in the direction of their inward truth, which was not personal. But as they reached it, they found God there to be the eternal truth, in search of whom they had traveled within. And when they emerged from there, they started to address the mankind. It's a strange thing. You have to be God's messenger, even when you are not appointed as messenger. Because to know Him is to return to mankind, to tell them what you know. So that is why, as I have said, prior to their find within themselves of truth, they were never known to have admonished others. They were recluse. They lived a life which was withdrawn from society, and they would hate to be addressed by other people. They wanted to live within their own world. And what did they do afterwards? They all emerged from that world and willy-nilly became the messengers of God. So inspiration made Buddha, inspiration made Tao, inspiration made Confucius, inspiration made Krishna and all others. But inspiration turned them to the messengers of God. Whichever way you travel, you will find God before you. That is why I always say that it is wrong to say that whichever road you take, it will lead to Rome. It's all stupid and meaningless. But this is true. And I swear by God it is true. That whichever road you take in the direction of truth which you think lies there, it will always lead to God. There is no escape from this. So the Ahmadis of Canada are so beautifully and well armed, so beautifully armed and so well armed to achieve their purpose in life. But if they are armed, they must know how the weapons must be employed. And you can only be armed by divine inspiration or divine guidance.
So that is why I return again and again to the question of improving your personal quality of goodness. If you do not do that, if you preach people to become Ahmadi Muslims, at best what you can achieve is there will be a thing similar to you being created as through cloning. If you are bad, the people you create will be bad. If you are weak, the people you create will be weak. So do not create before making it certain that you have become good. And create only that much of them as is good in you. Talk only truth and act only truth. When you speak to them of the goodness of Ahmadiyya Jamaat, we do not tell lies, we do not indulge in frauds, we do not deceive others and so on and so forth. I know most of you are liars at that time. You're not true. Because you are an Ahmadi sometimes who tell lies, who deceive others, who rob others of their rights, and you are taking it onto yourself to represent the whole Ahmadiyya Jamaat and telling the world, you see, we are this, we are that, we're that good, we're that good. You never turn inwards and recognize yourself, and then you realize that you are representing truth with falsehood. And that is why the Holy Quran has reminded us so clearly that in an age when man will be at loss as such, you can only change the world by sticking to truth, by being true, not otherwise. وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ. Bil-Haqqi means tell them to be true, but only do it when you have become true yourself. So I do not say that wait for that consummate moment in your life when you have been perfected. You will never be perfected in that sense. Who can be perfected beyond Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam? So should you not start your journey? I say start it with whatever you are provided with. Why don't you look around and realize that the fireworm spreads light in the dead of the night, although it reaches very short distances. But it does because this is a quality of life which God has granted him. So be a fireworm with that spot of goodness within you. Try to bring it out with truth. Say what you do believe in. Tell others what you practice. And say, we can't go beyond. This is the best we can do. We are humble people. We are ridden with evil in so many other ways. But please believe us, in this we are honest, we are true. This is our character. In this particular character we are good. For instance, there are people who say namaz 5 times a day, and at the same time they tell lies to others, they deceive others, they cheat others, they are cruel to others. I do not want to go into the philosophy of that namaz which they perform. That's a different subject. What I am drawing your attention to is the fact that they have the right to say to others, we say namaz. We find time for namaz. Please do it. But they should not brag of the fruits of namaz which they do not have. The namaz should bear good fruits. And the namaz should bear the fruits of goodness. So if they lack them, their namaz is meaningless, their prayer is meaningless. But only it has a meaning of a utensil which could be filled. So I do not discourage them by telling them because they do not realize that their namaz is fruitless and they are doing an act which is futile. I do not discourage them by saying that. Allah knows best how a namaz could slowly and step by step improve the quality of the one who says the namaz or the prayer regularly. That is one reason why I have no right to discourage them. But I am talking to the society which looks at such so-called namazis, those who worship God, and they begin to write to me, look here, are these the worshippers of God? They deprived us our rightful position, and you call them namazis. Now the critic, I know himself is false, because he lived with the same namazi without criticizing him, without looking down upon him, calling him a friend. But the moment he hurt him, suddenly his namaz became conspicuous. So these are the small areas of your attention. Without paying attention to these small areas, you cannot gain the knowledge of truth, the meaning of truth. So I do not condemn that namaz, but I know if any people in the society was hurt by such a person, he would immediately take note of the emptiness of his prayer. So if he can, why would not God do? God also take notice of everything which we do. Alimul ghaibi wa shahada. He knows what is visible and knows what is not visible. But like a fireworm which glows in the dead of night, in the hearts of these worshippers also there is some point of goodness which glows. If with reference to their prayer they begin to build that, if with reference to others they begin to tell them that we want you to be worshippers like we are, we find time for this, but we assure you that we have not gained everything which our prayer could give. So do not judge us from our character. Judge us only from the point of view of our having submitted to the will of God, at least in offering ourselves to Him. As such, this namaz would work as a utensil which can contain something but unfortunately is empty. But if there is no utensil, what will you fill your goodness with? So teach namaz, teach prayer to your children, teach namaz or prayer to yourself. But remember that it has to be filled. Fill it bit by bit if you may, but do fill it ultimately. And in that way, as I have said to you, you can, without false display of your piety, spread the small goodness which you have. At least you possess a utensil, something to fill with. Sometimes you sell the empty pots, don't you? The potters always do that. But they tell them that they are empty. Still they would be in demand. So don't be false, even in telling others of saying their namaz with reference to yourself. Tell them, and when you tell them, such moments can be born in you when your heart cries for what you have to admit. Then you become the sellers of pots, empty pots, which are ultimate to be filled. You have that pot and it is never filled. So a journey into God has to be a journey of wisdom. And to invite people towards God has to be an invitation with wisdom. That is why the Holy Quran repeatedly reminds us that invite to the path of Allah with wisdom. And wisdom, like goodness, is no color, no nationality, no religion, no country. It is universal. So what a beautiful book the Quran is. It arms you with a universal value. When it admonishes you to launch the war of holiness, of goodness around you. I'm sorry that I have taken about half an hour more of your time than I was expected. But the problem is that the subject I have started to discuss have only been covered at its tip. But I expect you to begin your journey from the tip down to the bottom of it. Because I have tried to make the thing clear to you, philosophically, reasonably, and rationally. So if you have understood the message, then I hope and I believe that you are well armed for the rest of the journey. You are provided, or at least you are shown a way to be provided for that journey you are going to undertake. Like Moses, in the end, I tell you, return to the spot where you have lost goodness. This does not apply only to Canada or other countries of the world. It applies also to every man. And with that, I'll finish my address. You also lost your goodness at different stages of your journey. You didn't lose your goodness all at once. So travel back into your childhood. Remember when you began to become bad. Remember that prior to that moment you were good. What made you bad? What made you change the course on which God had set you? So if you return to that rock where Moses and his companion lost their fish, if you reach back within you and discover that rock, then you should restart your journey from there. Allah bless you. And with that I rest my case, not like the people rest their case on the table. I rest my case with God. And I pray to Him that whatever I have spoken of would find favor with your hearts. And Allah bless you all for that. Let us join in prayer, please. Ameen. Ameen Sahib, what time the prayers will start?